Hello. This is the first video I think I've done on an interesting criminal case that I've enjoyed reading about. Generally before I've only considered civil cases. I think a nice place to start might be, what is the difference between a civil and a criminal case? A civil case is a wrongdoing or a dispute between two legal persons. I say legal persons because it can also be between corporations. When you look into what it actually means to be a legal person, this could be a video I do at a later date, but legal personage is something which was denied to women for a long time. It was denied to black people, that kind of stuff. So, you know, they couldn't own property. One of the big difference, well, it's not a big difference, but it's probably one of the most obvious differences between criminal and civil cases. So if civil cases are disputes between two legal persons or people, criminal cases are disputes between the state and the person or people. And as a result, we get cases that look like this. So if it's got an R at the front, that's a criminal case. R versus someone means Rex or Regina versus someone. Rex means king in Latin, Regina or Regina means queen. And obviously in 1982 we had a queen on the throne. This is the case of R versus Miller, and it's probably, Miller is probably, I don't know, see what you think of him by the end of this. He is maybe one of the most important homeless people in British legal history, or English legal history, and we're going to see why. So Miller is, as I said, a homeless guy, and he, for whatever reason, is sleeping in a house somewhere, and he has a smoke before bed and falls asleep. Unfortunately for him, he decides to, see, this is the importance. He doesn't, basically he forgets to put his cigarette out. And he sets the mattress on fire. And that sets fire to lots of the house. Miller, of course, as you do, when you wake up, when something's on fire around you, you tend to wake up. Miller just sees this fire, and rather than doing anything to put the fire out, he walks into the other room and decides to sleep in the other room while the other room is on fire. Miller, I think we all know someone like Miller, right? Someone who's just so lazy, they would walk out of a room they've just set on fire and go back to sleep. It's kind of, we all know someone who you ask them to do something and they'll say, yeah, I'll defo get that done, mate, definitely, and that doesn't happen. So Miller is one of those guys. It's unfortunate that he just so happened to be a homeless guy smoking a cigarette and also incredibly lazy. This fire causes £800 worth of damage, and obviously that's not good for Miller. The courts decide that they want to try him for arson. And what Mr. Miller decided to argue, or rather his counsel did, was that there was no actus reus. Don't worry, that's not English, it's Latin. So what does actus reus mean? Well, in Latin it means guilty act. Generally speaking, in society, when we talk about acts and when we're not referring to laws, an act is just doing something, right? An act of kindness is going and, I don't know, giving a homeless guy some money, hopefully so he doesn't burn down someone's house, or a building even. And that's generally how the law considered an act to be prior to R versus Miller. So actus reus was all about doing something. And in criminal law, it's all about combining actus reus, which is guilty act, with mens rea, which means something along the lines of guilty mind. So it's the combination of these two things. To give you an example, if I were to murder someone, the actus reus is the act of, I don't know, let's say I decide to shoot them, the act of, you know, getting a gun and shooting them. The mens rea would be my intent to do so. I might have planned it beforehand, or perhaps another degree of mens rea would be I was just reckless and decided I was going to shoot into a crowd of people and not care who it hits. At the same time, I could do it totally accidentally, in which case mens rea would say that I didn't have intent and therefore it's not murder. But again, that's something I might look at in a later video. So that was basically Miller's only defence, because what can you argue? You can't argue that he didn't set fire to the thing, because he did. You also can't argue that he didn't try and stop it, because he obviously didn't. So his main thing was, legally, technically, I kind of didn't do anything wrong. Thank God the courts disagreed with them, because they did. They said that was ridiculous, and quite frankly it is. But what's important about this case is that they decided that actus reus could be something called an omission. An omission meaning not doing something. So in exactly the same way that doing something can be seen as a guilty act, so too can failing to do something be a guilty act. His decision to fail to put the fire out and go back to sleep is a guilty act, and rightfully so. It just makes it so much easier to say things are criminal acts, because they just are. And one of the things I can see this being a spiritual ancestor for is stuff like Samaritan laws. This concept that standing by and doing nothing is just as bad as actually committing a crime is an interesting concept, and one which I think will continue to emerge in society. It's kind of like if you were to see a person drowning, depending on which country you're in, it might be a crime to not go and save them if, of course, you're able to. And I think this short video just shows, again, in a similar way to Donaghy versus Stevenson, how tiny things can have these huge effects. This homeless guy just being really lazy and deciding not to put a fire out has actually had this huge impact on criminal law. There are lots of really cool criminal cases, and I'm going to look at a few in future videos. If you really enjoyed this video, or even if you just enjoyed it a little bit, or if you just want to see more, please like the video. If you didn't like this video, you don't want to see any more of it, please dislike. If you want to see more of my content, click subscribe, and I hope to see you again next time.